Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Tracy Lownsberry, who's the founder of the Annuity Giants. Tracy, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, I'm excited to talk with you because you are in the industry and you are training advisors on how to approach annuities. And I love the giants. You know, let's not just say the annuity guys. It's the annuity giants. You stand head and shoulders above others. That's the connotation I get from that. So I'm excited to learn from what you're doing in the industry. But before we dive into that, give us a little bit of your background and story. How did you get into the financial services industry?
Yeah, it's great to be here. So I've been in the industry now since 2017, so coming up on a decade. And I came from a law enforcement and military background. The easy short story is just it didn't work out for me, and the big man upstairs had a different plan for me. And I stumbled across the insurance side and worked for an insurance company, and then worked under a registered investment advisory firm, and then started my own firm. And it has been a pretty wild ride since then. I changed my practice a couple times. About 5 years ago, I made this switch to focus specifically on annuities. Been learning about annuities for the past 10 years, but wanted to make that switch because I found that there was a lot more intricacies with them, and I was really passionate about learning them. And then really kind of turned my practice from just insurance only to really diving into the finance world and the tax world and the estate planning world, just because they all have there's a symbiosis between them all. And in doing that, was very fortunate to have been one of the earlier adopters of Facebook groups and growing them. And I had one. And that is what kicked off basically a training platform that I have. And now I teach and coach advisors and agents and RIAs and FMOs and NMOs and carriers on annuities. Been in some product design meetings, which is awesome, as well as some index development through some investment banks. And it's just, it's been really fun. It's been really enjoyable.
Neat.
I like it. Yeah.
You know, and no matter what, like vertical within the financial services, people seem to take, whether it's, let's talk about money management, let's talk about, annuities, let's talk about insurance. There always are changes. And so I feel like too many times if you miss out on a change or two or an update or two in the, political side of things, which impacts the industry, or the tax side of things, which impacts the industry, there's always something to keep up on. And the fact that you don't try to become all things to all people is huge, so that when you're working with an advisor or a client, your mind is wrapped around all things annuities. Why not take that traditional investment management path, like, let's manage your whole portfolio? What was it that attracted you to focus on just that one thing? Because there is a big temptation is to go, well, why focus on just that one vertical?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been asked that quite a bit because I actually refer quite a bit of business to referral partners that are financial advisors. And people have always asked me, why don't you just do it yourself or hire an in-house one? And so, it kind of started as, I'm going to make this transition from insurance only to kind of like finance insurance products, which definitely is a difference there, although it's still insurance. And I just found a lot of success in just doing that. And it was a lifestyle practice. It was also monetary. I mean, it was both. And I said, if I don't have to take on more from a capacity standpoint, because now when you enter the space of managing assets and, full financial planning, it can kind of consume you, where you're feeling like you're getting stretched in a lot of different directions, and you might miss some important, intricate details within certain areas of finance. And I said, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can continue to dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the annuity world, and just rely on partners for the things that I don't know. And I found success, and that was okay with me. I was like, you know what? I'll I'll refer this need out, and I'll grow other people's businesses. Why, it was kind of like, why do I need to be greedy and take it on? Not to say that people are greedy that do that, but I just decided, you know what, let's have the experts, the knights at the round table, let it be all
Yeah.
these separate people instead of it being the jack of all trades.
Yeah, I love it. And I feel like I know that in my personal career, 17 years ago, starting a marketing firm, the temptation was there and I took it, which was wrong, which is, ooh, I've got a family to support. I started a marketing firm. I need to do any kind of marketing for any kind of person. And it just, you were just a pebble in the ocean. But when you start specializing and getting really good, then that whole, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours kicks in. You become known. You become really, really good at that. And so I love that you did that. And I know when you work in the industry, whether it's with your advisors or RIAs or IMOs you're working with, or even clients, the word annuity brings sometimes strong opinions, and sometimes they're misguided, miscalculated opinions because of what the media might say. You hear the radio or the news ads like, oh, annuities are bad. Why do you think people have that misconception?
Well, I honestly, I always take this approach, and again, that's a great question. I take this approach of, I don't know if it really is a misconception. I think there are a lot of annuities in the past that, there's kind of twofold. It's the design of the annuity, and then it's the implementation of the annuity. And so the implementation, that's the advisor's fault. The design, that's the carrier's fault.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of annuities in the past, and even now, that have just a lot of design flaws. They have a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's unfortunate, and it's really hard for a client or a prospect or just a regular senior to understand and work through those smoke and mirrors. Like it's like you don't know what you don't know. And I also feel like a lot of advisors and agents are really getting sucked into that, where it's an ignorance issue and they really don't know what questions to ask to find out if that actually is a good product. But then the second part is the implementation behind it. I truly think that out of the thousands of annuities that I've probably audited, I could probably count on maybe two hands. Maybe I got to get my toes involved. How many were appropriately positioned in my in my opinion, I guess. So it's rare. It's either most of the time, I'll be honest, it's not the fact that somebody didn't need an annuity. It's more they put too much in, or sometimes too little in. They had the wrong expectation on what it was going to do for them, and it was the wrong product, or funded with the wrong money, or on the wrong spouse, or whatever. There's always like these details that were just missed that should never be missed. Maybe it's just the standard that we hold, but that's normally where the problem issues lie.
And that means, and that reiterates the point we were just making a second ago. If you're dabbling with annuities, you're probably going to not know all of those intricacies. If you become a specialist, then you're going to know how to, take the needs of that client and put them with that right annuity. Probably if we stopped 10 people on the street right now that had, the appearance that they might need an annuity, gray hair, haha. But anyway, if you were to say, hey, annuities, good or bad? All the people that would say bad, probably if you press them and say, oh, why is that? I feel like people would go, well, I can't put my finger on it, but I've just always heard, and that becomes a problem. They don't know what they don't know, and they can't put their finger on it. But the ones that could might just point to some of those old, like, oh, well, high fees, or, the return, you lose money. Well, maybe back in the old days or in the older versions, that was the case. But today there can be the great annuities out there, but you got to know which ones are the good ones. So I really like your approach there, in when you can have that specificity of your focus, it's going to really have that cream rise to the top.
Exactly. And then I agree 100%. I think a lot of folks, they truly don't know why it is they feel the way they do, or they have the thoughts that they have. It's just something that it could be all of the negativity around, like, there's advertisements around it, there's interviews and podcasts around it, there's financial shows, there's financial companies that are very anti-annuities, and they just they see that because it's in their face, and they just start to believe it without ever asking a question. And before you know it, they get to the age where they could be appropriate for one, and then boom, they never explore it.
So just like when we watch Shark Tank and it's like, oh, I was looking for this solution to this problem and it just didn't exist. So I made it and here I am, right? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. You must have seen some gap in the retirement planning world for a properly structured annuity for the right person at the right time. So why did you create the annuity giants? What was that gap that you saw?
Yeah. So essentially, I'm out there meeting with clients every single day, and it's like constant up against kind of like this monster, right? Which is, we used to lead with this marketing that was kind of it kind of danced around the word annuity because we didn't want to scare people away, and we knew that, hey, if we could kind of get you in the door, then we kind of mention it and educate you on it, we would have a better chance on you being more open to it versus like if we did an advertisement that was annuity specific. They're already not walking through the door. And I changed my tune on that over time, and I said, in the early parts of my career, I found myself honestly kind of like not bait and switching, but kind of. We would lead with one topic and we would kind of try to bring in annuities. And I just felt like that was the wrong way to do it. And that's like 99% of annuity marketing these days. And so I said, well, how can we just tackle this head on? So what we did is we found over the years that we can do annuity specific marketing and educate advisors on it. So clients and advisors, you just have to lead with it a little bit differently. You can't lead with like a product benefit. You can't lead with a product feature. It has to be, let's talk about like the negatives of annuities first. And actually, people are more interested in that. Well, the reason why I bring that up is because that's actually the same approach that we take with teaching advisors. Is we saw so many advisors through social media and also just meeting with clients and their advisors being very anti-annuity. We saw, okay, where is this? Why is there a gap here? Right. And I started interviewing advisors just like, hey, would you mind hopping on a phone call with me? I saw this post of yours, or it was literally a prospect we were meeting with and this was their advisor. And I would just reach out to them offline and say, hey, listen, man, I'm not trying to take your client, whatever, but I'm just curious, why haven't you explored these options? And believe it or not, a lot of them were pretty receptive and open to having a conversation as long as they knew that your intent was not, there's no malice behind it. And it was this reoccurring a thing where it was just ignorance. It was ignorance upon ignorance upon ignorance. They were putting these negative connotations and features around every type of annuity. Oh, like all these fees. But did you know there are annuities that don't have fees? Or all these surrender penalties. Did you know there's annuities with no surrender penalties? Or they take your money if you die. Did you know there's annuities that have death benefits? And it was just this educational overview with them that brought them to kind of the light, so to speak. And I said, man, there is something here. And so I just basically started to dive into that and doing a lot of outreach and marketing around advisors and creating my course. And it's just been a lot of fun.
And you've mentioned a couple times, both on the retail side of research and also researching the actual annuities and with advisors, research is important to you, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
I think that's pretty important because if you didn't spend that much time in researching your points of view, then it's just your own personal point of view. And then people are out there just, grabbing on sound bites. And speaking of sound bites, you've already mentioned that some financial professionals criticize annuities while others consider them a cornerstone of retirement planning. Why do you think that is? You've touched on the fact that, you hear a radio show or you click on something online or a social media post and it's like, oh, annuity's bad. Why? Why do those organizations or people or big companies cast some shade on annuities?
So I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think some of the main ones are they truly, truly believe that their practice without annuities, they can service a client's needs better through their own practice than adding an annuity to it. I do think there are organizations like that, and I also think that there's ignorance involved. I think again they're grouping a bunch of annuities into one. The whole high fee stuff and illiquidity and all this stuff. They're grouping it into one, and they're not exploring it more. And I think the third category is that in some organizations, it's been a cornerstone of how they've built their practice. There's a couple of them out there that are very anti-annuity, and that's their stance and has been their stance for decades and decades. And if they were to ever turn on it, that would just obviously blow up their entire kind of marketing
Yeah.
ploys that they put out there. So I think that's just one of those things where they're too deep in the hole already, and they
Yeah.
could never go. And honestly, it's working for them. So
Yeah.
it's from a business standpoint, whatever works for you works for you. Do I think
Yeah.
it's honest? No, but do they think it's honest? And maybe they do. Maybe they truly
Yeah.
don't like it, but whatever. They're gonna
Yep.
they're gonna
That's
attract
their
people
that's
that
their a road that they've hoed. Yeah, that's true.
exactly. You got it.
So in Annuity Giants, what is the training and support you give advisors? Because I'm sure that any carrier would say we give training and support, but what do you do differently in Annuity Giants?
Yeah, so I think the big part here is that I'm not owned by a carrier. I'm not owned by a marketing organization. It's a subscription only. You can come and go as you please. We don't promote anything out there. You're never going to have a bias on it, because whether you sell an annuity or not doesn't affect me, right? Your membership does, which actually means that I need to be on my game when it comes to training advisors. So when somebody comes in as a member, we really focus on, let's start from the beginning, make sure that you have the right grounding and structure. Just like you're building a house, let's build that foundation. And we've had guys that come in and gals that come in that are 10, 20, 30, 40-year veterans, and in their first 3, 4, 5 videos that we have in there, they're already learning a lot that they haven't learned before. And then, so it's kind of like a rewiring. So whether you're a veteran or not, we start with that foundation, and then we're just going to build from there and kind of meet you where you're at. The entire course is designed around kind of like documents and structuring around video series, and it's all the way from foundation to prospecting systems, organization, through also what we call like virtual ride-alongs, where you can actually go watch client meetings that I've had and recorded, and you can see exactly how I'm treating that relationship, how I'm going through annuity education, how I'm handling objections, how I'm working through the entire lead to client journey, so that you can take those pieces and make your practice better. And then we also even take it a step further, and we help you with things like marketing, through some courses that trial and error that we've had. And as well as we have a pretty cool tool in there where it's like it's kind of like a Monte Carlo, only it's a simulation tool that kind of shows you the impact of annuities historically.
Neat. So I like how you said that you don't get compensated for if and when they close an annuity. You just want them to succeed better, because you've got skin in the game, because you want them to stay in your membership, but you don't care if they choose this carrier or this annuity over the other. So that's really helpful. And I like those tools that you mentioned. You mentioned trial and error and things that you've done that have worked and not worked. And maybe you would even say to someone, this one didn't work for me, but let's explore if this, whatever initiative or outreach would work for you, because. And so I think that's neat. And I really resonate with that ride along, because way back in the day, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was in the mortgage industry. And I remember there were some top producers that would say, hey, come out and do a site visit to my office, pay us at whatever it was, X number of dollars, and fly out. We'll host you for the day. You can watch everything we do. You can sit in on the meetings. We'll give you documents. And these days, and that was, before the advent of, virtual and Zoom, was prevalent. These days, it's so much easier to do what you just said and go, hey, here's my exact, here's the recording and here's what I do. And I think that kind of like behind the scenes, behind the curtains look is really, really powerful for people, because they see you putting it into action, not just plain, here's this PDF or here's this video to watch.
Exactly. Yeah, it's powerful, and that's a big part of actually why people stay in, because we're constantly recycling content in there as well. So people really like the, hey, how has my process changed from like my earlier videos to my videos now? And it's just this ever evolving. I'm out in the field doing it every day. I'm dealing with the same issues everybody else is dealing with, only I'm now regurgitating, hey, I did this, don't do this. This sucked. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I did this. This worked super well. Try it out.
And if you went back in history a year or two, it doesn't mean that particular approach was wrong. It just means that times have changed. It's really interesting how we as humans and consumers, we have different ways we consume information now. Did it mean that before it was the wrong way? No, that was right for then. And now you have to stay up with the times. But to your point about those companies that just stick with, we've always done it this way, you're looking at it going, hey, I've pivoted a little bit. Here's what's working for me now. So let me just tell the group and come along with me. And this is what I'm doing. And here's the reason I made these changes.
Exactly. Yep. You're hit on the head.
So kind of wrapping up with this thought, think in the future, what legacy or impact do you hope the annuity giants will create and leave in the industry, in the lives of your clients and advisors that you work with?
Yeah, so this is a big push for me. It's changing the industry in a way that is just going to move it into a positive direction, because I do feel that most of the products, and I'm very strong in that, most of the products and annuities that are written and implemented today are off in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot of it. So I think what I would like is for people that come into the Annuity Giants Academy, that they leave, if they do ever leave, that they leave knowing exactly how to problem solve appropriately for annuities. And right now we're just seeing a big gap there. It's either on one hand, it's you're way too pro annuity and you're trying to put them in every single person's situation, and you're not actually you're not in a position to explain to somebody that they shouldn't be in an annuity, whether that's because of malice or not. I don't know. And then there's the other side, which is they never use annuities. And again, I could understand that if somebody's practice was, targeting 20 to 40-year-olds. But anybody in the retirement space, that to me, that just shows some level of a fiduciary breach if they are not using annuities, unless they have 10 clients and they targeted super high net worth people or something. So, I want to have that legacy, that impact, that, we are changing the industry for good.
Yeah. And the phrase comes to my mind, real is rare. And it's so rare that people are real to go, here's the real truth. Let's educate on it. Let's show the warts and the spots and help you navigate through and past and over and under that, so that we're presenting quality products to the right people and they understand it. They don't feel like they're confused. And that's just such a great mission, Tracy. So if someone is interested in learning a little more about Annuity Giants, what's the best way they can do that and reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, so pretty big on social media. So you can always find me on LinkedIn. That's my main social media platform. It's just Tracy Allen Lownsberry II, I believe, on there. And then you can always go to theannuitygiants.com. Check out our website. We also offer free trials as well right now, if somebody ever wants to explore it. Or you can email us and set up a demo or a conversation with me. The email is support@theannuitygiants.com.
Excellent. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.